Are you overserving? And is that even a bad thing? Does it sound like you're just a very, very helpful person? And and it can be. It can sound like you're being helpful. Are you overserving? And how that is affecting your life and other people's lives negatively. Now, first of all, we can all go through stages where we do this. And yet, I think that there's a certain class of people that are very prone to overserving. And I think that is Christian women, especially, specifically, even Christian women who are stay at home moms. This is not a conversation for just Christians, just women, or just stay at home moms. I'm just saying that since they have the time, they tend to fall into this and stay into it and not see that it's the problem because of this. Well, I have the time, so I should say yes. So that's just a little setup there of why, number one, of what we're going to be talking about over serving. And two, why also that you might be wondering, how is April even qualified to talk about this? Oh, y'all, I am qualified to talk about this. I could have had a master's degree, a doctorate in the art of overserving to the point of resentfulness and exhaustion. And so I have a lot of thoughts to say about this. I hope to say them in a concise manner. I hope to say them in a helpful manner. I hope that you hear it because even now, I will catch myself doing it in small, more subtle ways. And it's because there's that verse in the Bible that says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. That verse is not so much a command, I think, as it is an observation of what training in a child looks like. As in, the way children are trained is the way that they're going to live out unconsciously, instinctively, naturally for the rest of their life. So that can be a good thing, that can be a bad thing. Depends on the training. And also, warning, we're always training. That's a side note to say that I was trained, I'm the oldest of nine. I went to a very, an independent fundamental Baptist church, as in they were very certain about things, what was right and wrong, and what serving God should look like. And so I grew up in there under that mindset. And it was not until I was in my, let's see, late 30s when I remember a pastor saying to me, um, you should not, you should not agree to do everything that, that we mentioned in the church here. And I was just like, what? What are you talking about? And And he said, because we've all got different gifts and callings, and we should let those things shine. So there are some things that we want to say yes to and some things we want to say no to. And I just remember being stunned to hear that message from behind the pulpit. And so they got me thinking for a really long while and questioning. And here we are, probably about 10 years later, and I'm ready to share my thoughts. Are you overserving? Now, what is overserving? Well, overserving is saying yes to good things that are not great matches for you. That would be my definition of it. So, like volunteering when you don't want to. Okay. In fact, actually, overserving is saying yes to good things that are not great matches to you and continuing to say yes when you're aware of it. So, volunteering when you don't want to, helping someone more than maybe what's good for you and maybe even for them. Doing things from I should energy, obligation energy. So, of course, when we're young, we're not quite sure of our gifts and our talents and our values and our priorities. And so we try a lot of things. And that should be a time of exploring. But just because you said yes to it does not mean that you need to eternally say yes to it. In fact, I remember having a conversation with my best friend, and she said, yeah, if you say yes to serving in the 4 and 5-year-olds, at church, it's like they want you to stay there for the rest of your days. And she said, I was interested in that for a season, because my kids were young and I wanted to be with them and I wanted to be where they were at. And I thought that her perspective was so insightful that sometimes things are for a season. You want to serve in the youth department because your kids are involved in that, or you want to serve on this committee because you have a little bit extra time, or whatever. There are seasons to this. Sometimes, but we're not consciously thinking about service opportunities from our perspective. Not very often, because that sounds a little selfish. That sounds a little um, unnecessary. If there's a need, somebody needs to get up there and fulfill it. Well, that's the problem. So that leads me to, why do we overserve? So first I talked about what is overserving. Then I'm going to talk about why we overserve. And then how do we overserve? And then how do we know if we're overserving? And then finally, I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts about how to stop overserving. Okay. Like I said, a lot of thoughts because I've been thinking about this topic for a long time. And why do we overserve? Well, I hinted at it just a second ago. Number one is uncertainty. We are not certain what we would truly enjoy doing or what we would truly enjoy giving, of our time, of our money, of our attention. So we default to doing whatever others seem to enjoy. And then once we start something, we sometimes hate to quit it. We sometimes don't give ourselves permission to say, oh, hey, I tried that. It's not for me. So, in case you need it, I'm giving you permission to try new things for a time and then step out of it. Um, Speaking of the difference between independent fundamental Baptist churches and Southern Baptist churches, that was my first thing that I noticed when I went to a Southern Baptist church after having attended independent Baptist churches for years. Independent Baptist churches, you joined a ministry and you stayed in that ministry probably until death or retirement, and then which, retirement was frowned upon. And so when maybe you moved away and when there was a gap in that ministry, then the preacher would get up and say, hey, we need somebody else to serve in this ministry. And if you volunteered, you were expected to continue forever. There was no date, there was no season to it, which is not a problem if you know for sure that you love to do that. For example, like I think of my father-in-law, and I think of my husband too, who they both love to teach Sunday school classes. They're not looking for a date, they're not looking for an ending, but they know that they love that about themselves. They also don't raise their hand to volunteer in the nursery. Okay. But when we went to the Southern Baptist Church, they were laid out more in like seasons. Like you had the spring season, and then there was kind of a summer break in some of the ministries. And then you had kind of like the fall winter season, and then there might have been a break. And at some point, there was a questioning of, do you want to do this another year, or would you like to step back? And that I thought was such a wise reflection point, giving people the opportunity to reflect. Does this still fit my life and how I'm feeling called to serve? All right. That's what it, you know, looks like when it's uncertainty. Oh, here's another way when it's uncertainty. And we do this a lot as parents, especially as moms. We start out doing everything for our kids. We are serving our kids in every single way, from putting food into their mouth to cleaning their behinds. And we are not quite certain when to stop serving them in some of these areas. So maybe if we're cutting up their food way past the point that we should be cutting up their food. Maybe we are cleaning their room for them instead of training them to clean their room. Maybe we are taking it upon ourselves to help them make friends or keep track of their homework for them instead of training them and allowing them to start um, feeling the consequences of their own actions and inactions. So, uncertainty. We're just not quite sure where, should we be serving them? It's so much, by the way, it's so much easier for us to do it than for them to do it. So, that's another thing. And it's a little bit fuzzy of, when do we step, from serving to training to overseeing to letting them fly on their own independent way. By the way, we also do this with people who are what we classify in our minds less fortunate than us. Sometimes we will be over responsible for them, their lives, their emotions, their experience. Okay. It comes from a very kind place, but we see ourselves as being more capable. And therefore, then sometimes we see ourselves as being obligated to help. I'm going to get into that in just a little bit later. All right. But here's the second reason that we overserve. And there's going to be other reasons too. These are not exhaustive lists. Uncertainty was the first one. Insecurity is the second one. We are people pleasing at our own expense. We are keeping other people happy so we can be happy. We are saying yes so that somebody else will be happy, even though it doesn't make us happy. Okay, that is a problem because for a few reasons. Number one, we can't keep people happy. We can't make people happy. We can't keep people happy. We cannot please people against their will. We cannot take responsibility for somebody else's happiness above what they take responsibility for. It's not possible. It doesn't work, even though it feels like it does. And also, because we do feel happy, some of us, when the people around us are happy. We're deeply uncomfortable saying no to some people. It seems mean. It seems selfish. It seems like the easier path is just to go ahead and say yes. But here's the problem with that. The problem with saying yes to good things is that you have less time to say yes to great things. And maybe you say no to great things. And down the road, you start to look back and you realize, am I even utilizing the gifts that God has given me? Am I even fulfilling my creative purpose? Or is my creative purpose just to keep everybody happy? I don't know about you, but there was literally a point where in my life where I got to feeling like, yeah, my purpose is to keep other people happy. That feels like that might be my role. And I don't think that I'm the only one that feels that or has felt that in the past. And that's not true. No, your calling, your purpose is to bring your creative, unique abilities that God has gifted you with and share them with others. Okay. All right. So that's one of the reasons, over serving really is people pleasing at its core. And by the way, I think that there's way too much negative kind of stigma around the word people pleasing because people pleasing is not always a bad thing. Now, calling ourselves people pleasers and labeling ourselves as that doesn't feel like a great label, but I just remember the verse where Jesus says, I do always those things that please the Father. And it's like, yeah, it gives us joy to bring pleasure to other people's lives. However, we need to separate that from uh, basing our happiness on how well we have pleased somebody else, or even more so, sorry, I'm stuttering a little bit, on how well we have carefully navigated life and maybe muted ourselves so that we don't displease somebody else. Okay, so insecurity. And here's the big insecurity piece is maybe we have inadvertently tied our worth, our value as a human, to how much we do, how much we serve. And I'm going to tell you that I have had to work through that in my own life. And I have had to help a lot of my clients work through that of their actual self worth, their value, how they see themselves as a human being is tied to how much they do. And it's a tragic thing because we truly forget in those moments when it's tied, when our being is tied to our doing like that, by how much we're getting done, how much we're doing for others. We are perpetuating a myth that humans are valuable only if they are useful, only if they are productive. They are valuable only to the point of usefulness, productivity. And that is a dangerous road that leads to, well, infanticide, getting rid of children who have special needs that will not serve society. It is the road to, dark things like Hitler's Nazi Germany. Um, it's just a terrible thing. It is the beginning of the thought that leads to the path that the individual is here to serve the community, the state, instead of government, the state, the community being there to aid us as humans. Oh, I've just got so many thoughts on this topic. I love watching Star Trek. But what I do not love is the philosophy that the needs of the many outweigh the needs or the desires of the few or of the one. And no, we were not created as a collective. We were created as individuals. And the idea that one person needs to be the sacrificial goat to everybody else's joy is incorrect. And I feel like I'm going to get a little bit of pushback, like, what about Jesus? Well, Jesus said specifically, no man takes my life from me. I choose to do it. And that is one of the telling points, the difference between serving and overserving. We're going to get to that in just a second. All right. So, how do we overserve? Number one, we help others that could be helping themselves, sometimes to their detriment, certainly to ours. We see their needs as more valuable than our needs. And also, we kind of, this might be a training from, maybe you're the oldest child like I was. Um, Maybe you were the responsible one. Maybe, because of kids, you just got used to, looking after other people. And you forgot to keep on looking after yourself. Sometimes it's with our neighbors, or friends who seem dependent on us. But we find ourselves, how do we overserve? We say yes to the wrong things, the wrong people, or for the wrong reasons. Okay. So, what do I mean? The wrong things is we are missing out on bringing to the world our unique, amazing gifts. I read a book by Francine Rivers. Oh, I wish I could remember the title, but it was about a pastor and his wife. And he was a gifted pastor and he was building a church and building a work. And he had some insecurities, especially with his father that he had not worked out. And the wife was a gifted pianist. And as time went on, she started saying yes to every other thing but writing music. And the book resolved beautifully in the end. But think about it. So she's a gifted pianist and a gifted composer, and she's neglecting the gift that was given to her by God in order to help further along the ambitions of her husband, which, by the way, were not coming from a spirit filled place. They were coming from a more of a worldly ambition, desire to prove something to his father than to, bring honor and glory to the name of God. So she was helping him further and faster along that path without realizing it. Oh, you guys, this book, I wish I remember the title, but it was by Francine Rivers. And if you think of it, share it with me and I'll put it in the notes. Anyway, we're doing the wrong things. We are missing out on bringing our unique, amazing, creative abilities to the people around us. We're serving the wrong people. Now, this can look like a lot of different things. Like this could look like, you are giving to others and when you really want to maybe be at home with your family. Or maybe it looks like you are staying at home with your family when you want to be giving to others. And, you feel guilty about that. But maybe you can step back and just ask, or maybe you are serving the wrong people, as in people that are just not appreciative of what you're offering them. Pay attention to that. And then sometimes we're just saying yes for the wrong reasons. We might be saying yes to the right people, the right things, but we're saying for the wrong reasons. And so then it just feels icky. For example, we might be saying yes out of guilt when if we step back, we realize, actually, I wanted to say yes, but I said yes so quickly out of guilt that I never asked myself, do I really want to do this? And I do see that I want to do it. I want to get, be generous in this with my time and my energy and my attention. And so this happens when we don't give ourselves permission to actually say no to something that we have been invited to do. So if we do not give ourselves permission to say no, if we're an automatic yes, then we're not actually giving. We're just automating. We're saying yes for the wrong reasons because to us, there's just no other answer than yes. All right. How do we know if we're overserving? I think this is a crucial piece. Number one, we feel exhausted or burnt out instead of energized and satisfied by what we do. Number two, maybe we're feeling resentful or unappreciated or critical of others or upset because nobody's noticing our efforts. I always think about this, as the Martha versus Mary. I always think about this as the Martha versus Mary thing. Martha was probably in her element, or maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was saying, I wish I could be sitting beside Mary at Jesus' feet, but somebody's got to serve all these men. Or maybe she enjoyed serving, but she was out of insecurity planning too big of a meal, too complicated of a meal, and had been depending upon Mary, but Mary wasn't helping, or Mary didn't notice that she needed some help. There's a lot of things, but there is something going on where we are not paying attention to what it is that our spirit is trying to tell us. And so then we're focusing our attention on other people. But if we're feeling resentful or unappreciated or critical of others, that is a sign that we're overserving. Maybe we've been doing things for too long. Maybe we've been doing it the same way for too long. Maybe we've been doing it for the wrong reasons, but it's a time to reflect and question. I just hinted on this a couple minutes ago. We're saying yes from guilt rather than genuine desire because And what I mean by genuine desire is it aligns with our values and our priorities. It's an easy yes. It's a make sense yes. It's like, oh, yeah, of course I want to do this. For me, I did not want to serve in the children's department for forever. But of course, I wanted just to serve while my children were young. I want to be involved. I want to, be a part of the things that they enjoyed. And here's a busy one of how do we know if we're overserving? We're staying busy for busy's sake. We feel guilty if we're not doing something. And this is a subtle signal of that we have tied our service to our self worth because we're just staying busy for business sake. Like, I know I've done enough because I'm too exhausted to do more. So, therefore, I'm going to give myself permission to stop because exhaustion's forced it. That is staying busy. That is over serving for the sake of feeling worthy. That is um, like I said, that's very insidious. That is something that really is going to hold you back. That is something that you really want to work on and catch yourself if you're falling into that or if you're coming from that energy. All right. How do we stop over serving? Well, number one, we've got to use that word, that really bad word, that really hard word to say. No, we got to say no more often. We've got to give ourselves somehow, some way, permission to say no. And if you, like me, struggle really, really hard with saying yes when you want to say no, this is what I did for a while. Instead of saying no, I had to do a baby step and say, I need time to think about it. And I mean, I forced myself to say that every single time. Before the yeses, before the nos, I just had to say, I need time to think about that. I'll get back with you tomorrow or the next day. And I memorized that phrase. And there was a long season in my life where that was what I said, regardless of yes, regardless of the no. Okay. That's one step. That's one tactic. But the goal, the bigger picture, the bigger goal is you want to create a space where you can get back in touch with who you were created to be and what you were created to offer to others. And maybe you already know. Maybe you're already saying no to that when you want to say yes to it. Maybe there's just not time for that, which one of the ways to make time for that is just to carve out an hour a day for it. Like make an appointment for that. Make other things bend to that schedule. Give yourself permission to do that. Give yourself permission to explore a little bit. Like if you do say yes, tell yourself, I'm saying yes for the next 3 months, and then we'll see again. Because I don't know. I don't know if this is something I want to do or not do. Um, but one of the best ways to really dive in deep, and I did this exercise a couple of years ago when I was doing a challenge on, from busy to blessed, take back control of your days, was I told the people on the challenge, I said, make a list, make 3 lists. Okay. So one is I have to. Another one is I want to. So on the left-hand side of the page, I want you to make a list of everything you have to do. On the far right side of the page, you make a list of everything that you want to do. And in the middle of the page, you make a new list of everything you choose to do. And you choose from desire, not have to energy, not should energy, not need to energy. But you just give yourself permission to question everything that you've ever done and say, do I want to continue to do this? I remember when my coach said to me, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. If you're an adult, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You don't even have to pay your taxes. She goes, now there's consequences that, come from the things that we do and the things that we choose not to do. But to to really take ownership over your own life, to really take ownership over your own calendars, to really take ownership over your own day and your own experience, and to really let go of resentment and obligation and all the shoulds that are keeping us from experiencing the abundant, joyful Christian life. We have to remind ourselves. We ought to remind ourselves. I don't have to do anything. I get to choose, and I get to choose for my reasons. And so I did that. And I specifically remember thinking, I don't want to take my son to basketball practice. So what if I didn't have to? How else could he get there? What are the other options? And I remember thinking, well, he could quit basketball. Right. He could quit basketball. We could just have him stop being on the team. And I thought, oh, I don't want that. I want him to be on the team. Like, oh, I guess I could hire somebody else to take him, you know. And besides the fact that I wouldn't want to spend that money, I realized when I just gave myself other opportunities, I realized, oh, wait, this kid is 15 and a half years old. I only have a few more months of this time together where I get to drive him places. And pretty soon he's going to be off on his own, doing his things, and he won't want mom around. Probably doesn't want mom around now. This is my opportunity. I'm a quality time. This is an opportunity to spend quality time with my son. And all of a sudden, I mean, in the span of just a couple of minutes, I let go of, I have to take my son to basketball practice. And I found the news story of, I get to take my son to basketball practice. And I'm lucky and I'm fortunate to do it. And I've only got a little bit of time before I get to do it. And I'm so thankful for that. Y'all, this is the power of when we allow ourselves to question our yeses and nos. So that's what I want to ask you today. Are you over serving? And if so, what are you going to do about it? That's the questions. So, and if you really need some more help figuring this out, you can book a free clarity call with me. Just reach me, send me an email at aprilbraggcoaching.com. I think that's my email address. Blinked out for a second. Or reach me through social media on Facebook or Instagram. Send me a message. Those are probably sure ways to get a hold of me. But are you over serving? Think about all the joy you're missing out on if you're doing that. And let's get to a place where we are doing things confidently because we know they are aligned with us and we're doing them for the reasons that feel great. We're doing them because we're being generous of spirit and not because we have to or because nobody else will. And we're certainly not staying busy for busy's sake because we are afraid of what we'll find at the end of the day if we didn't prove our worth to somebody else. You don't have to prove your worth to anybody. All right, this has been a long one. I hope you hung in till the end. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.